Let's get back to Michelle Mendoza and more live from Seattle.
Yeah, we may see it as an issue removed from us, something from the dark underbelly of America, and we don't hear it talked about on the evening news when it is an actual epidemic in America, and America is one of the leaders in human trafficking.
It's the middle of the night, and it starts with a briefing.
There's information about firearms at both places.
Durham police officers have arrest warrants and a plan.
So everybody's clear on what we're doing?
Minutes later, the human trafficking unit is on the move.
At what point you decided it's time to move in?
I think when we have enough evidence that we've gathered from the victim's statement, and then just the right timing and safety concerns.
This investigation started months ago when a 15-year-old girl came forward to Durham Victim Services. She said she had been lured on social media and forced into the sex trade.
We're going to protect our victim, number one, and then lay charges and hopefully prevent them from trafficking any other females that are out there.
Either way, we still support them.
The focus here is on supporting victims, even if they don't file a formal complaint. The numbers are skyrocketing. Many victims are underaged and terrified.
If somebody says it doesn't bother them, they're lying to you.
Well, a lot of us have daughters in the unit too, right?
Yeah.
So you can imagine that, pitching your daughter and gravitating to this sickening trade that they're involved in, right? Where they're manipulated and they're forced into sex trafficking, or some of them are assaulted. They're brutalized for 10 to 15 times a day.
Your tactically, you don't need it.
An hour later, they meet with a tactical unit at a Toronto police station. The evidence gathered so far points to 2 females working for a pimp who's in jail. The women may be former trafficking victims who became recruiters.
Now, I'd like you to imagine for a moment being abducted from your family as a young child. Imagine, think back to your childhood and what that would have been like to be torn away from your family by human traffickers. Your life is over at that point. You're going to hear firsthand a local woman's story, how through grace she was rescued by police, adopted by an American family, but she lived a life of abuse, neglect, and victimhood. But today, she's victorious. I am just blessed to have with us Dana Priyanka Hammond with us. We'll talk about her book. We'll talk about her story. Dana, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Dana, I'm thankful that you share your story. It must be difficult to relive some of that, the things that you've experienced. But yet you shared your story in a book, Tear the Veil. And the beautiful thing about it is that you help us to understand what's really going on. And you help us to understand that there is hope. And I appreciate that. Can you just tell us a bit about your story? Just give us a little background into how you found yourself a human slave.
I found myself as a human slave when I woke up in a rice sack. And
how old were
rolling
you?
Through I was 4 years old.
4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You woke up in a rice sack. You had been abducted.
Yes. Yes. And it becomes emotional for me because just being in that sack, not knowing what's going on with you, what's happening, was a very scary moment for me. It was a very scary experience, you know.
Of course.
So,
and I bet it has even more meaning. We can hear your little one in the background. I bet it has even more meaning now that you now being free and delivered, hold a small one of your very own in your arms. 4 years old. And you were you sold? Were you betrayed by family? Do you even know what could have taken place?
I don't, But the thing is, I can't even imagine what has taken place, and that's why I am currently on a journey to finding my birth family, and I've just begun that journey.
God bless you in
And I
that.
will find out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry that your childhood was just stripped from you. At 4 years old, your childhood was stripped. And from that point, what did you experience?
A lot of emotions, a lot of feelings of abandonment. And, you know, I tell my story because a lot of adoptees or a lot of children who go through all that experience, you hear these lies and experience these feelings of that, why was I given up? Why was I rejected? What happened? What really took place? And that's something that we ourselves can't answer because it's really in us to figure it out. And we want to know. We want to know the answers. We want to know our background story, whether it's good or bad. At least we know. But just if you can imagine being left in the dark and not knowing.
I can't imagine that, but I also, on top of it, can't imagine you, this precious woman that I'm speaking with right now, at any stage of your life, but especially as a 4-year-old child, being exploited in the sex trafficking trade.
Yes. I go around letting people know, you know, honestly, child trafficking means more than just sex trafficking. It means adoption trafficking. It means organ trafficking as well as labor trafficking. And I believe that I could have been, there's a possibility that I could have been adoption trafficked. And but like I said, I won't know until I go on this journey to find out the real truth. But yeah, the trafficking alone, there's so many different names to it. And it just does not mean just sex trafficking.
Well, I would love for you to tell us your story of how you went from victim, and this is unimaginable what you went through. I am so saddened that you had to go through this. And yet, here I talk to this beautiful woman, and when I see your picture, we see your face, you see this beauty inside and out. I see victory written all over you. And here you have a loving husband, a beautiful child of your own. You have now what we can see as a beautiful life. But it's taken some time to get there, and I'm sure in some ways you feel like you're still in that journey.
Yes, I am. In a lot of ways, I'm still in that journey, and it's not easy to go through the process, and the process is very tedious. It's very tiring, and it's a little bit at a time until you can get there.
Well,
so,
I'm wondering.
Yes.
I'm wondering if we can take a little look at traffic and then come back and would you share with us a bit of what you needed, what you've experienced to come to this place of victory in your life? Would you do that for us, Dana?
Sure.
Thank you so very much. Today we are talking about human trafficking, and Dana is so good to put a face, a voice on this epidemic in America. We're going to hear more of her story. We're going to hear part of her victory story. And we're going to find out what we can and should be doing. It is affecting all of us. And our first step, listen to this program. Let's talk about it. Let's get it in our mindset. Let's stand against it. I'm Michelle Mendoza, your friend in the afternoon. And believe me, not a fun subject, but today you're going to be left with hope. And just seeing people go through their own journey from heinous to happy can give us hope in our own lives too. This is 8:20 a.m., The Word.
time for more Live from Seattle with Michelle Mendoza.
We are not afraid to take on some big, heavy topics on Live from Seattle, because no matter how heavy the topic, there is always hope, because there is a big God. And that's what we do on Live from Seattle. We look for the God story. And that God story is always hope, even in the ugliest of situations. And let me tell you, I think if we do not talk about human trafficking, we are part of the problem. We are part of the problem because we allow it to be swept under the rug, to grow, and then to just be accepted as that's just the way it is. Oh no, because there are costs. Broken families, broken lives, broken bodies. Dana Priyanka Hammond she's told her story in the book, Tear the Veil. She also has an upcoming book, Abandoned but Not Forgotten. She was a victim of human trafficking at the age of 4. And we're going to hear her story of deliverance. Dana, thanks for staying with us. What's this grace you talk about that you found in your darkness? When you were here as abandoned, trafficked, and alone?
Honestly, it was God. It was God who found me, and I had to meet him there. And I met God at the age of 20, and then that's when I realized that when I met him, it was all him from the beginning, even in India, that, rescued me, that put me in a place of safety where a lot of the children, they don't even come out. Yeah. They don't come out, and they go through a tremendous, terrible, terrible experience. And I believe God's hand was in my life all that time, even when the enemy was trying to destroy my life from the beginning, just for this reason, so I can talk about it. I can share my story, even though I didn't experience the horrendous part of it. It's just a matter of fact, I still was trafficked. I went through it, to go through not knowing what was going to happen to me. And I can tell you, when I experienced God, I experienced him for the first time. I heard his audible voice calling me out. I've seen his face, and that's what really changed me and took me in a place of self-discovery, finding my identity. But it took a long, long time to find my identity and finally get my balance. And I really, truly got my stability in my late 20s, honestly. That's how long it took me. And to really be in a stable place where I'm at. Even though I'm in a stable place where I'm at right now, I'm still discovering who I am and what I'm about. I'm just now walking in my purpose. I'm walking in my calling. Yeah. And that took a while. And my purpose is to write my story, is to share my story, is to advocate for people and children and women who have been trafficked and abused and neglected and deminimized, and just everything that I went through, everything that, because all that experience alone, and hearing the voice of the enemy that they don't want you, just like they didn't want you. Your adopted parents didn't want you. Nobody wants you. See, nobody wants you. And I was just that black sheep, feeling like a ghost in this world and like a dead body. Yeah. And that's the life that I was living. No identity, nowhere to turn to, no future, no hope or an expected end. But God said something else otherwise. And that's why he always gives me that Jeremiah 29. He always gives me that.
That's a powerful story, and it really is an encouragement for absolutely everyone. Look, we live in a fallen world. God doesn't wish for a 4-year-old child to be trafficked, But we live with the consequences of sin. We live with the consequences of the ugly choices that we make. We live with the consequences of our devaluation of human life. We glorify abortion and say, hey, it's okay to kill your own offspring, and then wonder why we don't have a value for children, and we see so many children trafficked. We are living with the consequences. But here's the thing that I hear in your story, Dana, that first of all, God gave you beauty for ashes. God can take the most heinous situations and bring such beauty from it. And that not only gives hope to someone out there who has been a victim, but it gives hope to all of us, because we all have traumas in our lives. We all come against a wall and say, why? We all come against heartache and pain and think, I can't go on. I might as well not be alive. We all come against the idea that we have no value and no worth in this society. And if someone who's gone through such an extreme story can come out of the other end, hold a child in her arms and say, God's doing a work in me, and I'm going to tell my story so others can be free. Honey, you are changing the world.
Thank you. Thank you. And it took a really coming from a not from a no place, from an empty place to really say, I've already been 10 feet under. Where else do I have to go but up? And because I have nowhere but up to go, then that means I do have hope. Yeah. I do have a future. Wow. I do have an expected end. And this clearly tells you that God's concerned about the children who are being affected. And mind you, with sex trafficking, organ trafficking, adoption trafficking, and all that above mingled together is $35 billion industry. Yeah. With that alone, why would God not be concerned? Well, but he was looking for one vessel who said, I will rise up. I will tell my story. He was looking for that vessel saying, send me, God, send me, and I will do it for you.
And that's the hope That's the hope I was talking about today, Dana, that even in the talking about a very dark subject, it's easy to just want to turn the station in a way and say, oh, I don't want to hear about that. That's awful. But this is the crazy thing with the God story. You also hear the story of hope. Her name is Dana Priyanka Hammond. Now, she was one of the stories, a very powerful story that you can read in Tear the Veil, but she has an upcoming book as well, Abandoned But Not Forgotten. When that book is available, I will let you know. Dana, thank you for sharing that hope with us today. Thank you for sharing your story. Keep telling your story and keep hearing God's voice tell you what a beautiful treasure you are. Thank you so much for being with us on Live from Seattle.
Thank you.
As Live from Seattle continues, we're going to continue this topic. We're going to talk about how we all have a little bit of culpability and what can we do in learning to value human life again. Bringing a change, because it's not just Washington that needs to pass laws. It's us that has to pass judgment on ourselves for the choices that we make, America, for the choices we make in our own family. How can we turn the tide? Telling stories, hearing stories like Dana, finding a truth to believe in, realizing in small ways how we contribute to the problem. This is hopeful, and that's what we're doing today. We're live from Seattle, 8:20 a.m. The Word, and I'm Michelle Mendoza, your friend in the afternoon. This is Live from Seattle.